Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and this is where we normally will talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, or an episode of it specifically. We're still talking about the show, but we are in between seasons. We finished season 4 in the last episode, which means this is where we're going to do our traditional top 5 episodes of the season and worst 3 episodes of the season. So that is the plan for this episode. We'll start with the top 5 and then throw in the negative stuff at the end, because, start with the positivity, start with happiness, start with good things and praising what it is. I think one of the things we found as we were looking at this, there's a couple of really standout episodes that were obviously are 1 and 2, but this episode was a lot more consistently really solid without the spikes.
This season.
This season, sorry. What did I say?
Episode.
This episode. Yes. This season was a lot more consistently really solid, with less spikes to like absolutely amazing episodes. Whereas I think, season 2, for example, had a couple of really great spikes, but then the actual average quality was a lot more iffy. Season 3, it was obviously very good. Like the standard had went up quite a bit, and there were still those spikes. So maybe season 3 we're saying is overall a little better than season 4 because of that. It's hard to tell.
I think it probably had more spikes that that really excited us. Looking back at thinking about when we did that top 5 compared to this, but I also think it had a lot more low dips as well, where there was some really bad episodes that we were like, okay, that's easily in the bottom 3. Whereas this one we were like, I guess it's these 3.
Yeah, there was 2 that stuck out, but I will say this: the worst episode of the worst 3 in this season is not as bad as the worst episode in any of the 3 previous seasons. I don't think, anyway. Certainly not season 2, because the season 2 was the clip show. So, and
season 1 definitely had worse episodes.
And season 1 definitely had worse. Season 3 was what? The Captain's Holiday was probably the worst one. I can't remember. That was pretty bad.
There was that, and then there was the one that was definitely not Northern Ireland.
Oh yeah, the terrorists,
yeah.
But hey, so let's dive in then to the top 5 episodes that we sat and we debated, and there wasn't much of a debate here. We kind of just agreed on all of it, but this is our top 5 of season 4 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Number 5 is Clues. This is the episode where all of a sudden the crew start to notice that there's weird inconsistencies on the ship, as if some time has been missing. Saying that, one example was, I think Crusher was growing some sort of plant or something, and then all of a sudden it was like it had been growing for another day. Obviously this is an alien plant that grows really quick, because a regular Earth plant would not look that noticeably different in one day. And then Data's really suspicious, like he's covering something up, and the ultimate reveal, of course, is that in an attempt to not be killed by this alien race who want to essentially be kept a secret, they all agreed to have their minds wiped. But there was too many, as the title would suggest, clues that had them all kind of trying to figure it out. It's actually very similar to an episode of Red Dwarf, as I was reminded as I was just looking at what these episodes were before we started. I was like, oh yeah, I remember the episode of Red Dwarf. Yeah, they had to find because they buried something on like a moon, and they went back there at the end of the episode, and they were like, shit, we have to forget all this again. It's very, very similar. But yes, and the reason why this all happened in the first place is because their stun technology just didn't work on Data, and that's why in the first place they had to agree to all have their minds wiped.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. It played into a lot of the characters have a thing for mysteries in general, like Picard especially. Throughout the show, that's kind of been a thing he enjoys. Which
is why it's especially not because Data loves being Sherlock, and so it was especially notable that he wasn't like sniffing the mystery out, because he usually loves that. And I think particularly because I remember there being a tell in the episode early, maybe halfway through or something, when they're starting to think Data's acting kind of weird, can we trust Data, like are we questioning Data here? And it was like, why wouldn't he follow an order, why would he lie? And just the answer popped in my head is, well, because this is under your order, like Picard ordered this somehow. Sure enough, that's what the resolution was.
But there's a really good scene where Picard is like trying to order Data to tell him what's happened, and no matter what, Data doesn't crack. Even when he's threatened, like, no, this will be the end of your career, and you might get decommissioned and essentially killed. But he still doesn't crack, and it's like, no, he keeps his word to the previous order.
Yes. because the previous order was like, no matter how much I order it, you're
Yes,
ordered
exactly.
not to tell us what's going on. So obviously the episode ends with them agreeing to try again, that there was too many clues left behind and that this time it'll work. And sure enough, we see Data sort of give them an explanation for why they all passed out, and they accept it and move
It's
on.
just like, that was weird.
But-
Never mind.
That said, though, there is that one little moment that I think we noted with Picard where I kind of read it as he had a moment of deja vu, but he knew not to dig. He didn't know why. Like, he couldn't have told you why he had the instinct to say, no, I'm not going to question this. But he clearly had an instinctive moment of going,
Yeah.
doesn't quite add up, but something's telling me to let this one go.
He learned, even subconsciously.
Yes. So that's number 5. Number 4, early episode in the season, but a very important one that actually sets up a lot of what the finale would then do, and was continuing some things from last season. This is Reunion. This is the episode where Worf finds out he's got a son. It's where the love of his life that was introduced the previous season is killed, and where he ultimately makes the choice to kill her murderer, which is the sort of the traitorous Klingon Duras, which we really appreciated that ending because it did the thing where I think we were convinced it was going to do that thing where he swings the axe and it'll turn out he's only hit the side.
It'll do that cut where it's just next to him. Yeah.
And it didn't. No, he actually went through with it, and Picard gives him a reprimand, and Klingon, Worf says this is, under Klingon law, this was completely legit. I was entitled to murdering him because he killed my lover. It doesn't matter how long ago it was. And Picard's like, yes, but you're a Starfleet officer first. Which, in hindsight, given what the finale does, actually is a nice setup of the themes that we're going to be playing with.
In a lot of ways, I think I like this episode more now than I did at the time, just because of all this stuff that it did set up that did become quite important, especially at the end of the season. And it felt like we were obviously pretty positive on this episode anyway, because of bold risks like that ending, for example. But now seeing, okay, no, this was actually part of a plan for the season that had a really strong direction and really propelled things into motion. I appreciate it more.
Yeah, I think the finale does improve it a little bit. Not that it really needed it, but it does make it feel a bit more important. And I think, likewise, remembering this episode more and thinking about it enhances the finale a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a two-way street. So that's good. And, he had great chemistry with his ex. Whenever, Shirley, she wasn't obviously around a lot, but in the 1 or 2 episodes she was around, there was a great playfulness to her.
An awkward tension on his part.
Yeah. And because there's a thing where she has the son, and he's like, "Wait a minute, given that kid's age, this is all fishy." So we didn't even know for sure. Worf assumed that it was his kid, but yeah. So there was a lot of stuff there, but obviously it also set up. That was where Picard became this official in the succession of the Klingon Empire, and where he got that role. This was, I think, the first one that really properly set up the fact that some Klingons were working with Romulans to help overthrow the Klingon Empire. So there was a lot of big stuff in the episode, on top of it just being a really good character episode for Worf. And again, him making the less TV friendly decision of going through with the kill. But not, because I feel like in most TV shows, if a character goes through with something like this, it means they're a villain now. And that's not what this was at all. This was just No, this was
Worf. Completely in keeping with their culture, and not in a villainous way. This was just this is just what their culture is. But also, of course, Picard and the Federation frown upon this action, so that's why there has to be repercussions as well for that.
Yeah, so really solid stuff. That is Reunion. Number 3 is The Wounded. This is the episode that introduces the Cardassians into the Star Trek lore, which I know are going to be an even bigger thing in Deep Space Nine and so on. What's really cool about this episode, though, isn't even that part of it. Obviously, they play their role, and they're fine in that role, which is they attack the Enterprise, this ship, and when things calm down, Picard's able to talk them down a little bit. It turns out it's because a Federation ship attacked one of their bases. And when Picard looks into this, it's true. There was an attack at this. Basically, a Federation ship has went rogue and attacked this what was supposed to be a science station. And that's kind of an interesting detail that I'll get to in a minute. But the key thing about this is that this is someone who has been in conflict with the Cardassians before. This captain has become paranoid, And it was, more interestingly, this ended up being like a really great episode for O'Brien, who obviously doesn't get a lot of great big plots in this show. And because he had served with this captain previously, when they do eventually track down the ship and they can't, they're trying to, they're not building that great a communication with them. They're trying. Eventually, O'Brien kind of beams aboard the Phoenix, I think the ship was called, and he reminisces with this captain, and he connects with him, he empathizes with him. And O'Brien throughout the episode had been very anti-Cardassian. He was very standoffish with them whenever he was interacting with them. He clearly had an opinion. He clearly didn't see them anything other than this used to be our enemy kind of thing.
He had a great scene with one of them at the bar.
Yeah. And as often with these shows, this was very much about the idea of him getting over the fact that this used to be the enemy, and there has to be sort of some advancement on from this. This is a big thing in Babylon 5, because there was a war between the humans and the Minbari like 10 years before the show started. So there's a lot of characters who are still kind of, feeling each other out on both sides of that. That's what it made me think of. But when he does go to see this former captain of his to try and talk him down, despite the fact that he has been very antagonistic almost with the Cardassians, he does say all the right things. He does approach it in a diplomatic way, and he does, he still is doing his duty as what he's been ordered by his captain, and what the right path to take here is, and it is aiming for peace. And the little caveat, of course, at the end of the episode is that Picard is like, you know what? He acted off book. He wasn't supposed to do this, and clearly we had to bring him in. He was, completely out of line. However, the reason why he attacked, based on what is said, up until this point we called paranoia, was there was something to it. There's some fishy details about this science station that isn't very sciencey. It seems to have defenses. It seems to have, scanning blockers. It's a very
strategic location.
Yeah. So let it be known that we're keeping a close eye. But, and obviously a lot of the episode is the Cardassians watching to make sure that Picard is doing everything in his power, because they don't want a war to break out. They want to make it clear this was one rogue ship. This was not the Federation. And
that's kind of why at the end Picard's like, look, we both know there was more going on at that science station than you're willing to admit. But I'm giving you the warning, but I'm going to let it slide this time, because otherwise this will be a war, and we really don't want that.
Yeah. And there's a lot to humanize these characters that, O'Brien especially sees as nothing but the villains, and kind of approaches that, in any sort of post-war scenario where, you don't want to have this just inherent racism of, oh, they are from that place, therefore I must hate them. It's like, they weren't the ones making decisions. I mean, in this case, they were fairly high-ranking military officials, I suppose, but,
But yeah, because for him, he was personally involved in the war. It was like 5 years ago, whatever it was, maybe 10. But it was, I think, where he killed someone for the first time because of what they did.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was probably my favorite scene of the whole episode, was him talking about that and hating himself for doing it. And that's kind of why he hates the Cardassians, because he was driven to that.
Yeah, it was a great scene.
Yeah, that talking about giving a guest star who's just around mostly as a background character, and giving him something like really meaty like that to sort of win us all over. Yeah. Really good stuff. I'm glad you brought that scene up. But there you go. That's number 3. The Wounded. Number 2. Number 1 and 2 were easy. This was such an easy choice. Number 2 was First Contact. This is the story of the planet that is on the verge of being ready to join the Federation, of being, basically, making first contact with other civilizations. And the Federation does this thing where apparently this is just normal now. There's a procedure where they go in and then try and make it go smoothly, where they'll try and see how ready they are. They'll send 1 or 2 people down to talk. It's a little bit covert, because they have to find out, like, is there something about us that are immediately going to scare the shit out of them and react badly? Like, because I think they bring up like a previous example where, because of this one incident, we always kind of try and go in and,
we don't want to, start with war.
Yeah. So, and there's a whole thing where Riker ends up down there, and there's shenanigans going on.
Gets it on with the nurse.
Gets it on with Lilith Crane. But part of the reason why this is so good, so it's fun up until a point, and the premise of the episode's really good, but what makes this episode so great is that when the leader of this world, who's struggling with the politicking throughout the episode of what we should do, and he seems a lot more progressive than some of the others that are sort of high ranking, is that all of this situation and how it almost breaks down into some sort of like, you know, this paranoid alien invasion fight that everyone seems to be ready to go for, is that he comes to the realization that my world's not ready for this. Like, I want us to be, and maybe in, you know, a generation's time, maybe in 5 generations' time, it'll be time, but I have to decline. I have to say no. Can we? And part of the fun part of this was that this effectively was going to become this planet's Roswell, because there was going to be a couple of stories about this thing that happened, but it was just going to become a myth.
It'll become a myth, and I don't want to pay too much attention to it, really.
So that was a neat little sort of touch there. I never thought Star Trek would give me kind of almost like a plausible reason why at least the aliens, if there was indeed a Roswell, would have made this choice to never appear again, or more importantly, why, if there is UFOs sometimes in the sky, how have we never actually talked to any of them? Because they're avoiding us. They don't want us to talk to them. They're hiding.
Yeah, and the idea here of, you know, the leader kind of seeing, you know, we're not ready for it yet. And like you say, you know, they view it as an alien invasion, which, oh God, can you imagine America in the 50s? How they'd react to this? Oh dear.
So no, it's one of these cases where the resolution was so untraditional TV, but made so much sense from just a sound logic perspective, and having Picard sort of agree to this and say this is the right choice for you, and this was your choice to make.
I think it's very telling of things that, you know, we like. That 2 of our top 5 already so far have got that same theme of making the unexpected choice, especially for TV, even more especially for the time, where yes, it just subverts those expectations.
But more importantly, though, subverting expectations is not enough. It has to make more sense.
Yeah,
because you can easily swerve us, right? This is a mistake. Bad writing will do it. It's a mistake that I've seen. Wrestling loves to do it over and over again, where they'll do something that makes no sense just because it'll be surprising. This is surprising because it's the right choice, because TV usually falls into the trap of doing the other thing because that's what's comfortable, because that's what TV does. That's why it's satisfying, and that's why it's refreshing. But on top of that, because Star Trek is this show that is trying to explore the politics and diplomacy of these things that obviously represent regular, normal, everyday world topics, but do it in this sort of, you know, wrapped up in this alien space adventure show, you know, it's doing that side of it as well, on top of just characters making logical choices. So that's was the sort of thing where it was a really good episode, and then the last like 5 minutes just shot it into the stratosphere.
Yeah, they were truly spectacular.
Yeah, so First Contact's wonderful, which leads us to number 1, our favorite episode, the best episode of season 4. And dare I say, now I don't know if we're going to do like an overall top 10 or something at the very end of all this, like the show. We didn't for the original series, so I don't suspect we will. But I will say this is definitely top 5 of the whole show so far. That's number 1.
Oh yeah, this is up, like, without a doubt. As soon as we watched this, we knew this is up there.
Now, admittedly, it's only been 4 seasons, so theoretically all the number 1s should be in that top 5. Although I don't think season 1 would be. I think the top 5 of the show so far would all be from 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not necessarily true, because they say, you know, you could have one amazing season, like hypothetically, season 3 could have 3 episodes.
Hypothetically, but I mean it's unlikely. It is. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, what would the others be? Measure of a Man, sure. Like that sprung to mind, but you know, the first Borg episode, Q Who I think that was the name of that episode. Those spring to mind, but the Drumhead. We're talking about the Drumhead, which is season 4's best episode, which is the story of this admiral, or badmiral, as Star Trek fandom would use, is essentially on board. And I can't remember why she's on board. I don't remember that part of the episode. It's been a while now.
I do. It's because right at the start, there's been an attack. There's been an event, and she's there to investigate that. Oh,
that's right. Yeah, there was a small explosion. You're right. But regardless, the important part here is that she zones in on one red shirt, effectively, because this red shirt happens to be a descendant of a Romulan. Not Vulcan, as he's written on his his Starfleet admission papers, way back when.
Legal documentation.
Yes. And it's a court episode. It turns into this trial where he's questioned, and we're seeing that this is turning into, he can't be trusted because he lied on a piece of paper 10 years ago. Because of that, we cannot trust him. And therefore, and obviously it turns into xenophobia, racism. And so not only is it fascinating to watch because it's so well written, but once Picard takes that stand and Picard gets to make a speech about what's happening here, and the follow-up of that, the two amazing follow-ups to that, other than his fantastic speech, which is a 10 out of 10 moment in and of itself, is the wonderful shot the moment where she finally loses it and yells in this sort of, vigorous anger, and everyone just leaves the room and leaves her sitting there because, okay, like she's revealed herself, her time's done. It's a wonderful moment. And then what I liked, perhaps even subtly more than that, was the final scene of the episode, I think it was, where Worf kind of admits that he was taken up in the hatred, that, he was convinced by her that he couldn't trust this person, and it was completely based in nothing. It was just the spread of hate.
It's easy to get, whipped up into the mob frenzy.
Yeah. So not only did it tell this story with obviously solid messaging about spreading hate to fuel politics and to fuel decisions and public opinion, but it also took one of our main characters and had it work on them, and didn't make us hate him by the end of the episode. We understood how it happened, and Picard is very understanding of why it happened, and ultimately says, we need to
try and be better.
Yeah, try and be better, but all you can do is learn from this, and next time, not be tricked. Next time, sort of analyze it yourself and think about it. And I think my favorite thing just overall about the episode is just as it goes on and Picard's watching this happen and unfold, as he slowly realizes what is happening, as he slowly realizes what she is doing, and the more and more outspoken he's becoming as it's piling up and it's becoming clearer what she is and what she's doing. It's wonderful.
And the point where he realizes that, okay, he can save this kid's life, basically, but his career is still over regardless. Just because of that one lie, he can't put that back in the bottle. That that's out there now. He's still gonna have to leave Starfleet, and there's a very touching scene between them towards the end.
Yeah, and that's one of the things as well, is like the fact that he felt he had to even make this lie in the first place is the same problem. It's just the part of the same problem. So, a wonderful episode that prods at so many things. It's so relevant in so many ways. So many groups who use just fear of the other to drive their campaigns, to use it to fuel their power. We can still be great. Look at all these people who are a threat to our greatness. So therefore, and then of course the idea of convicting people based on their race and things like that. So there's so many layers of different things that it's kind of talking about.
There's even a nice connection with the Cardassian episode that we were just talking about, where in that one, the whole thing, they were enemies 10 years ago, and they were hated. They were at war with them, and now they're trying to work for peace. And in this, one of Picard's points in his speech at the end is, are we really going to condemn him because he's the grandson of someone we happen to be enemies with right now, but might not be in the future? And just again this idea that cultures and perceptions change, and we can't just hold that against them forever. Yeah,
it's powerful stuff. It's Star Trek, the Next Generation specifically, start at its best. This not that the original series didn't tackle things and didn't do great things in its own way, but Next Gen clearly is almost defined itself and separated itself from the original show by episodes like The Drumhead, where it tackles something with such tact and such a careful touch that
it's almost unfair, not accurate to call it subtlety, because it's not subtle in its message, but it's subtle in its storytelling, I think.
It's just executed well. I mean, ultimately, I don't know how to sum up. I don't know if the word subtle belongs anywhere in the conversation, really. It's more just you have a script that has it play out in a natural manner. You have actors, particularly Patrick Stewart, who delivers it with gravitas and belief. And I think when you watch that scene, you can feel Patrick Stewart himself, like, presumably, because I don't know him personally, but presumably he can buy into that speech and he can put his heart into it because he believes in it, because he does believe in this as he's saying it, and it's not just
by
Picard.
all accounts, he's a pretty wonderful guy. He's quite the activist, from what I'm aware of. So it wouldn't surprise me if, of course, he absolutely fundamentally agrees with this speech. It doesn't take that much acting on his part, presumably.
And I think because he himself probably feels that what he's saying is important, that there is an important message to be delivered here, and I think if anything, someone like him probably feels, not that he's not a well-spoken guy anyway, but he feels honoured for someone else to write, like, the perfect version of it, the one that he doesn't have to think of on the spot, the version that can stand the test of time and has been scrutinized and has been worked on by multiple people to give you the, in many ways, we talk about how Star Trek Next Generation is compared sometimes to Superman because of the idea of, like, trying to be the best we can, and how that almost seems lame to certain audiences, but that does that's part of the struggle and part of never giving that up in the face of that. And the idea that obviously someone who plays Superman can't actually fly, can't do all these things. But I think for someone like Patrick Stewart or anyone who gets to play a role like this, the idea of being, I get to be the perfect expression of, like, I wish I was as good as this person. I wish I could be this much of an inspiration. And Patrick Stewart, I think, he's a pretty far bit along the line, for more than most people. But getting to do that, I think that passion is in these types of scenes when he delivers these speeches. I think he believes in what he's saying.
He puts something extra into them when he knows it's not just an important scene as because it's his job, but because it has potential repercussions as in society, where he's like, no, this is important. He goes above and beyond. Yeah.
So wonderful episode. Drumhead is an absolute masterpiece of a Next Gen episode. One of the best of the show so far. There could be an argument that it's the best so far. I am not willing to say that yet. I'd have to go back and rewatch the best ones.
At this point, if someone told me this was their favourite episode out of the first 4 seasons, I'd go, sure, yeah, fair enough, I get it.
I wouldn't argue with it or be surprised by it by any means. So there you go. That is the top 5 episodes from us for season 4. We will quickly give you our worst 3 episodes. Number 3 is Final Mission. You'd think we'd be delighted by this because it was the send-off to one Wesley Crusher, but ultimately it was Wesley and Picard in a cave for, like, most of the episode with not a lot of interesting things happening.
It was pretty dull.
It was pretty dull. One of the dullest episodes that there was this season, and we'll just leave it at that. Number 2 is Host, or The Host. This is kind of important because it introduces a concept to the Star Trek world that is going to be coming up again in future shows, and most recently in Discovery. Discovery. Yes. Joe, I questioned it because I remember Tara talking about it. I'm like, but Tara doesn't do Discovery, but she did because you were away for like a month, and that's why we talked about it.
Yes, it was when my computer was broken.
That's why I talked to Tara about the Trill. So important in that sense. So some interesting concepts, but ultimately it plays out like Crusher's in love with someone who she's known for like a week, and it feels a little bit false, and it falls into some of those same issues that pop up in those episodes.
For as important as it is in the Trek lore long term, it's for the most part a Crusher romance episode, which means it's probably not that great.
We've not had a good one of those yet. I mean, I'm going to say it's impossible though. You never know, but as of yet, we've not hit gold with that. And then number 1, the worst episode of the season. And I bet, let me just reiterate this. Not as bad as the worst episodes from any of the 3 previous seasons, I don't think. I still think even in this one, I do think there's some interesting ideas and concepts. But however, The Loss, which is the episode where Troy loses her powers and is very upset about it, and that's the episode.
That is pretty much the episode. Everyone's like, oh, you'll learn to live without them. You'll be fine. And she's like, no, I won't. No, I won't. I need them. Not that she ever does anything really useful with them, but she needs them.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to remember any specific scenes from this one because I don't. But but I remember just not enjoying myself.
Yeah, I think that's part of why it's So this is one of the only ones where I've deleted almost everything of it from my memory, apart from the feeling and the general premise. I'm just like, ugh, don't need that in my brain.
Yeah, because there's like a woman who comes to see her right at the start, and then she comes back at the end. She's giving like therapy sessions out.
Yeah, and she's terrible at it without her powers until they're like, yeah, you've got intuition, and she's like, I guess I do, and she's just starting to get the hang of, being able to manage and do her job without them, and then look, they're back, it's fine, nothing to worry about.
So there you go, worst episode of the season. Picard's like romantic holiday episode was worse, I think. Yeah. So yeah,
although she did come back this season, and that kind of made me like that episode more, just out of sheer comedy factor.
I mean, half of her episode this season was not bad. The back half really was a bit of a slog though, with the Robin Hood stuff. But yeah, didn't quite make her bottom 3 though. I mean, that was probably like 4 or 5.
It was in that bottom 5.
Yeah, but no, there was a really strong consistency though to a lot of the season where we had like a good half dozen that just didn't make the top 5 that were all kind of in that pretty solid good range.
Yeah, we were like, no, these are good episodes. Definitely enjoyed them, but we kind of knew these aren't top 5 material, but they're still good.
Yeah. So yeah, 1 and 2 weren't even questioned though. We just, as soon as I got them on the list and we were going through, I was like, oh yeah, Drumhead's number 1, First Contact's number 2, and there was no even second question about it. So
I think this is one of the only times where we've ever done one of these lists without much argument at all, really, because we were just like, yeah, those 2 were clear, and usually there's like one of us has an outside choice that we want on the list at like 4 or 5, and we're kind of trying to wrangle the other one to go on, let me have this one, but there was none of that this time.
Nah. So there you go. That is our top 5 of season 4 and our bottom 3. You can let us know what your favourite episodes of season 4 were in the comments below. And of course, next time we will be starting season 5 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I can't believe I'm saying that. It feels so weird to be going to season 5 of the second show. Because
this has been quite a journey already, and there's still so much left.
We started January 2017. It is now 2021. It's been 4 years, and here we are, just over 4 years now. So, but hey, further into the final frontier we go. So please do like and subscribe. Super important on YouTube. It is the easy and free way to support us. You can also, of course, go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can support us for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. I will just casually throw out here that if you like other old shows being covered, me and Tara are working through Babylon 5. We're in season 2 of that. That's really kind of heating up plot-wise, right where we are. And we're also working through Classic Twilight Zone as well, which is quite a bit into season 3. Those have like 36 episodes a season though, so the fact that we're on season 3 is a lot more notable in that one.
Yeah, you're nearly done with that one.
Not quite. There's 5 seasons in total. So, although that said, season 4 is half the episodes because they're double the length, but we'll still get through them twice as quickly because we're not going to.
You're going to do half an episode at a time.
So, yeah. So I suppose we are past halfway because of that, but that's the only reason why. So hey, anyway, go check out those. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and remember that somewhere out there, maybe in a cave, Wesley Crusher is in complete control.